We are declaring a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence. What happens after that? Where are the laws?
But at this age and time, we are still talking about 11 northern states that have refused to domesticate this. Now, imagine the implication of this.
At that level, I don't think that girls had to die or for things to get so dire.
It just didn't start happening. It's been happening. I'm 56 years old. It happened to me as a child. It happens to me multiply.
It's not a matter that you are a Muslim or a Christian. It's not a function that you are a PhD holder or you are a pepper seller on the road. What it is that you are women. And for as long as you are women or girls in this climb, you are going to experience one form of violence or discrimination or the other in your lifetime.
Sexual and gender-based violence is a global menace that spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. According to the United Nations, Nigeria recorded 56% increase in the number of reported cases of gender-based violence during this period.
Moving on now, the increasing cases of rape, sexual harassment and murder of women and girls continue to dominate discussions in Nigeria, with the demands for justice getting louder. While the country is yet to come to terms with the case in Benin, while Mozua, another girl, has been raped and murdered in church in Ibadan. And this has been going on, and the outrage from people is continuing.
So sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria has taken a whole new dimension, a whole new turn, because we saw from the fallout of COVID-19, particularly the rise of these activities, sadly.
77% of victims of sexual abuse in Nigeria today are children, ages 0 to 17. It's a frightening figure. 0 to 17. So only 23% are adults. Only 23%. From north to south, east to west. This is not a Lagos thing. This is not a Kaduna thing. This is not an Enugu thing. North, south, east, and west. If you want to confirm this further, walk into any police division or area command in any state and ask them to list the top 3 crimes they receive on a daily basis. If they mention kidnapping and robbery, the second or the third, it won't pass the third, will be rape and child sexual abuse. If they mention and then you say, okay, how many cases do you get in a month? They say 10. How many are adults? How many are children? 7 will be children.
The statistics say that 1 in every 3 girls would experience a form of abuse or the sexual abuse before the age of 18, which I feel this is very disheartening. Almost every girl would even have an attempt, if not rape or sexual abuse.
People are facing violence every single day, right? I mean, there's this 3-year-old that I just mentioned. You know, there's a 6-month-old baby in Nigeria that was penetrated by an adult male. You know, there are cases of, you know, there's a 75-year-old woman who was raped. You know, there's the cases. I think for me, my biggest issue is that the disparity in age for the cases continues to widen. You know, so it's like the victims or the survivors are getting younger, the perpetrators are getting older.
No, you want to tell me your cousin? You don't tell me that person is your cousin. Stop on your leg. You want to tell me that person is your cousin? Okay, stop. So open your leg. Open your leg. Hey. Say again.
A lot of the things I knew growing up about maybe how rape works, you know, I thought, oh, rape happens in the dark, you know, you're walking on your street, someone corners you, you are the house girl, the boss rapes you. Let's even look at how that is even played out, right? You go to a party, they spike your drink, or a man you like, you go and visit him, right? But me, I was even attacked in front of my mom's house. Like, how do I reconcile that?
It was a usual day, usual, hi, welcome, hey, come in and watch TV and stuff. And then things just happened so fast, and I found myself just begging on the bed and just like, oh, please, I'm sorry, please, you know, that type of thing. But yeah, that's what happened, really. And then when it happened, I just burst into hysterical laughter, and it was the most ridiculous thing. I guess my mind was trying to help me.
Lost my parents when I was 7, so we had to transfer from one to several family houses, where two of my uncles actually abused me. So I lived with this for some years, not knowing who to tell, how to get help, and I see these people every day of my life.
What do you think about violence against women, especially in marriages?
Oh, I advise any couple, once there's domestic violence, quit. It's better to be alive than to tell story. It's only a living that tells story.
You sound like you have been a victim.
Oh, I don't want to remember it, because when I was 18, I got married. I was 18 and I wedded the next year. I was a victim because we are in a family house. The worst thing that can do to any woman is to live in a family house with the father, with the mother, with the sister, with the brothers, everybody in the same compound. It's not a good one.
How did you survive the violence that your husband
I'm surviving by the grace of God.
You're still in the marriage?
No. I left the marriage after 3 years. I had 2 kids. I had bruises. This is the scar from my husband's elder brother. You can see it. This is my husband's teeth. Sorry. This, somebody's teeth. I had 3 at the back. You know what? I had 2 kids. When it was getting out of hand, I had to leave the marriage.
So you're not finding that what we call even family is beginning to be strained, because a lot of maggots are coming out from what we call family, from those values that we held so strong. And you're having people that they will only molest within families. They don't molest. There are people that is only cousin, and they're the ones that end up actually molesting their daughters, because then they don't have access to, you know, those aunties that will come and leave, they will leave, they will come, they will leave, they will go. Majority of them molested.
Oh no, please. Oh no.
Will you shut up?
I don't want.
If I want to express how I feel because I have been sexually violated, being raped specifically, for instance, I'm expected to exude shame and other things as against the realities of rape, which of course is not cast in stone. Different people respond or react in different ways, right? Depending on the different circumstances, because of the different circumstances.
When anybody walks up to you to say something happened to them, first of all, you believe them. You're not an investigator. Investigation is left to the police who would investigate. You believe the person first and calm them down and be objective, empathize with them. Don't tell somebody you know how they feel, you don't know. Even if you were a survivor, seriously, everybody's experience is unique to them. There's no two kind of rape.
Even, you go to police, they re-traumatize the survivor. We had one during the lockdown in Yaba, the woman was asking, you said, why you no fight them? Why you no bite them? The police are not even trained. They don't understand the fight or flight response, right? The Lagos State is really trying. I have to give them, they have, gender units, they have DSVRT, they have some, but it is not enough. Every police officer, every single one of them, let's not even go into the fact that some of them are perpetrators. I mean, we know what happened to the women in Abuja, that were arrested and then raped as bail money. But just even the basic, standard operation of attending to a survivor, like if someone comes to you and says, I have been assaulted, like just what to do, what not to say, the kind of questions to ask.
We take things in different capacity. For some people, they feel like giving up and ending their life. Although I've never felt that before, but then it's not just like because I am strong or anything. We have, I don't know what to call it, courage, like different levels of courage. So for me to even be speaking up now, it's another courage. The victim shaming is there. Victim blaming, okay, you too, when it happened, why didn't you tell? What did you do to him? Did you seduce him? All those things can even traumatize you because you don't have anybody to tell. So you are walking around with this burden, and this same person that violated you, they are even still telling you, because it's your family member, go and greet the person. And the person does, welcome. Those things alone can get you crazy, like you did something and you still have the audacity to be walking around freely and you're still greeting me like you did something good. So, because victims cannot speak up, it brings in a lot of trauma. Not until now that so many people are speaking up, and some people are still not speaking up because of the closeness of the abuser to them.
A big problem I'd like to flag would be that the creative industry is funded by patriarchy, and so it means that the realities of victims of sexual and gender-based violence are pretty much edited to suit the emotions of patriarchal minds.
So a young girl born starts with the rule of the father, to the rule of the brother, to the rule of the husband, and then she will move to rule of the son even. Where you see some old women are even afraid of their own sons, can't talk to their sons. Nah, I can't. Let's wait for him to come.
And I think it now goes back to the family. How are we raising our children? How are we raising our boys? Who is speaking to the boys? Girls are being spoken to. You're going to your husband's house. This is how you should do. This is how you should clean. This is how you should dress. Don't wear a wrapper once you get married. Remain, Who is talking to the boys? You're preparing a girl to serve a king, quote and unquote. But who is preparing that boy to be a king, to serve a queen?
We heard about the death of the student in Edo State. And I remember that night I spoke to a friend of mine, Buki Williams of Education as a Vaccine, and I said, we have to go on the streets. And she said, look, Chioma, whatever it is that you need. And so I made a few more calls. I spoke to Yemi Adamolekun of Enough is Enough Nigeria. I spoke to Samson Itodo and Cynthia Mbamalu of Yaiga Africa. I spoke to Ayodeji Osowobi of Stand to End Rape. I spoke to Buki Shonibare of Invictus Africa, and I said to them, we cannot have the outrage and then it dies, and then we have outrage again and then it dies. I spoke to Hamzi Lawal of Connected Development. And so I set up a WhatsApp group and added all of these people, about 7 of them, into this WhatsApp group on the 3rd of June or the 2nd of June. And then by the 3rd, we were clear in our minds, we were going to go on the streets. We also started writing out, what we were going to ask for. So we had a 5-point agenda we're going to ask for. By the 4th, we had sent information to our friends, other civil society partners. Some people had said they were going to support. And these protests didn't just happen in Lagos and Abuja. They happened in about 7 states simultaneously. People going to the commissioners of police to say, we are asking for these 5 things. And I think one of the things that really worked for us was we told everybody, come, open source. These are the 5 asks. And these asks resonated with everybody because we said, first of all, declare a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. We can't have these types of numbers, right? If you look at the life cycle of a girl or of a female, the entire life is filled with one form of violence or the other. And we just said, We cannot have the numbers 56% increase in sexual and gender-based violence in the first 2 weeks of lockdown. And whether we like it or not, there are more cases that go unreported than there are cases that are reported. So if you say 56% increase, it means that the numbers are standing, or astounding. And so we just said, you know what, we're going to go out. And on the 5th, which was a Friday, we went out. We went to the in Abuja. We went to the IG's office, and the Force PRO met us outside. We had a conversation. We also went to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, and we had a conversation there, and we laid out our demands. And yeah, we've started engaging with both at the national level, at the sub-national, our list of demands. We had a letter sent to the Nigerian Governors Forum as well, and all we're saying is we are tired of just hearing we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We wanted to see decisive action, and that's what the entire State of Emergency GBV coalition is about.
Of this administration's determination to fight gender-based violence through the instrumentality of the law and awareness creation. I am particularly upset at recent incidents of rape, especially of very young girls. The police are pursuing these cases with a view to bringing perpetrators of these heinous crimes to swift justice.
Do you remember what it felt like to hear him utter those words?
Well, yes. For people who have been working in this space, it just showed like the government had decided to sit up and actually pay attention to this. Prior to this, when the COVID-19 response had started, there had been an outcry. Foreign countries had started pointing out, look, there will be an increase in sexual and gender-based violence. Can we do something about it? And it seemed like there was no preparation for that here. And some of the responses women got was COVID-19 is not a gender issue, it's an everyone issue. And everything, there is a gender issue in everything. So to see them finally pay attention, it was encouraging. But at the same time, at that level, I don't think that girls had to die or for things to get so dire.
We are declaring a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence. What happens after that? Where are the laws? Look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. We still have, only 15 states that have passed this in this country. This is since 2015. Look at the Child's Rights Act, which was passed 17 years ago, 2003. We still have 11 states that have said, you know what? We don't think this is priority. So how do you claim to represent people? And we can all parrot the numbers of sexual and gender-based violence survivors, but we're not going to put in place the laws that protect them. It seems a tad hypocritical to me. And so for me, it's going back to government to say, you promised. Declaring a state of emergency is not an end. It's a process. It's actually the beginning of a process, of a long, windy process that ensures we achieve elimination of violence against women.
Take, for example, the Child Rights Act. At the moment, it's no brainer, it's just simple common sense that every state should actually domesticate these policies. But at this age and time, we are still talking about 11 northern states that have refused to domesticate this. Now, imagine the implication of this. Most of them are talking about religious and cultural beliefs. Come on. But if we actually had more women, more female lawmakers, more female governors, if we had a female president, then they will be able to tackle those issues that we have.
So for instance, we often hear speak up, survivors speak up. When survivors speak up, what resources and institutions are there to support them? So having done a lot of work in this area, I see survivors who approach the police, and the police are not even equipped to handle their situations. So for instance, a survivor walks into a police station and wants her perpetrator arrested, and the police goes, we don't have a vehicle, or we don't have fuel, or we don't have manpower. Going to the court system as well, a policeman cannot charge a case to court if there's no money for logistics like photocopying of court processes, or filing materials, taking duplicate case file to the Ministry of Justice, even taking the perpetrator to court to face justice. And so these are the bottlenecks that we really need to address when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of what needs to be done to actually ensure that survivors get justice.
Discussions about what needs to be done to tackle the menace of gender-based violence is the reason for this meeting by the National Orientation Agency in Abuja.
We advocate the setting up of Sexual Harassment Act desk officers in the MDAs. 3, timely prosecution and the adequate penalty for offenders.
Our government should also put in place programs for prevention, protection, and provision of services to those vulnerable groups affected, as well as ensure accelerated disposal of cases of rape and SGBV.
The office of the citizen is the highest office in the land. And from my engagement in activism all the way from 2008, we see time and time again that when citizens come together and demand the thing of government and stay on that demand, they get the answers that they seek. It might take a while, which is why I said stay on that demand. And so we're activating citizens and telling them, call your legislators, call your governor, call the people you have elected to represent you and ask them, what are you doing? If you say you represent me, and I say this matter is important to me, how are you proving your representation? That's kind of where we are. And there are tons of organizations that are doing the mapping. There are tons of organizations that are very clear on where can a person get help. Just prioritizing the access to justice route, right? And there are a number of organizations doing it. Is really crucial. Where can people get help? When something happens, before I go on social media to talk about it, maybe I don't even want to go on social media to talk about it. What do I as a citizen know about access to justice in Nigeria? These are the things that we all need to focus on.
And the point, again, in picking the right people, is that we need more women in governance, we need more women in politics, more women representation. We're currently at less than 10%. That is an insult. But not just an insult to women, but an insult to the process of equitable leadership. We need more women in that space. More women ensure that there is a balance. It's not just, we're not saying more women so that more men will be kicked out. And for people who say, if you are voting women, whose seat will they take? The return rate for the National Assembly is low. The return rate for anywhere is low because governors, the best they can do is 2 terms. The highest they can do is 2 terms. A woman entering there is not going to stop you from, it's not going to increase you to stop you from your 2, or what's the name, increase you to 3 terms. Like you were going to get 3 terms before, and now a woman is coming, you're not going to get it. No, it's 2 terms. Presidency, 2 terms. National Assembly, unlimited, but return rate very low. So it's not women that are keeping you from returning. Another person will still shift you. So what do we need? We need at least 35% of affirmative action. 35% does not mean that women stop at that 35%. It's a stepping stone. And we should say that, look, the National Assembly, State House of Assembly, all of those things, 35% is the minimum that any gender should hold. You can hold higher than that, but you should not hold lower than that. And I think that is a great step because in governance, we need equitable representation. We need equal representation. Like if we have more young people there, more women there, yes, older people too, but they really hold the space. Persons living with disability, if we have more space to include more people, you would see that there will be balanced representation, balanced leadership, balanced angles to leadership and policy and lawmaking. And that is something we should consider.
In countries like Rwanda and Ethiopia, where you've actually seen the rise of women into politics, you've actually seen a drop in cases that they've had. You've also seen the implementation and also the efficiencies of the policies as well. It's one thing for you to actually make policies and for you to legislate laws. It's another thing for you to effect them and hold people accountable. We have 2 sets of problems in Nigeria. One is, where are the policies that are gender-centric? The other one is where we've actually managed to factor in those policies. Who is leading the implementation? Who is holding our leaders accountable? And the more we have women that are underrepresented, we will not have women that are actually amplifying the voices of women. We won't have a policy that is reflective of who we are as a nation. At the moment, I think we're about 51-49 in terms of, the percentile division when it comes to our demographic, right, in Nigeria. And so where you actually have a society that comprises of men and women, and you have predominantly men ruling the country, it means that you're going to start seeing some gaps and some deficiencies in our policies.
Our platform is storytelling, it's story-driven, and all the time you come there, you find the stories you find there are real. You come to our inbox, you hear young girls tell you their challenges, their experiences, and you're wondering, you're like, my goodness, did this happen? Does this happen? Yeah, that's what it happens. So we are very passionate about gender-based violence because we believe that an informed young Nigerian is a better Nigerian.
It's important for there to be more dedication to amplifying voices of victims of sexual and gender-based violence. That thing that they say that victims of sexual and gender-based violence don't want to talk is highly fallacious. It's a big lie. We want to talk. We like for people to understand what we are thinking. We like for people to understand that we don't think that our life is over. We like for people to understand that, you know, we are upset simply because we were not treated like human beings. We like for people to understand that what is good for men is good for women, and that is why we are, you know, we do what we do.
You know, local media is scared of telling some things because generally the media is not as free as we think it is. Absolutely. You know, absolutely. The media is not as free as we would like to think the media should be. And that again is why when we're talking about these kinds of social issues, we're not just talking about them in silos or putting them into boxes. It's realizing that these social issues are very political as well. You know, so on the one hand, we want to talk about gender-based violence and leave it at gender-based violence, but we cannot talk about it without talking about the issue of poverty and corruption, and without talking about issues of freedom and human rights. You know, because they're all interrelated and they're all connected. So we think we're solving one issue, but whilst you're solving it, you're realizing that there's an issue of media, the lack of media independence. And if there is one institution or a group or a sector that has should potentially have the power to hold government or to hold, you know, to hold the leadership of a country responsible or accountable, it is the media.
So yes, the media has a role to play, and sometimes what saddens me is the how would I call it, sensationalism. You know, the media often sensationalizes these issues of violence against women. Oh, man with a cruel heart. It is not that. It's a crime. The way you report a kidnap, or a robbery at gunpoint, whatever, report sexual and gender-based violence like that, serious, with no sensationalism. It goes beyond, violence against women goes beyond the individual act of one man to systems and institutions that makes men do that and feel they have a right to do that. And that's why we talked about patriarchy. You know, so we have moved past, no, it is just that madman. Men don't behave like that. No, it is not just that madman. If it was just that madman, then we will nip him, stop him, and then no other men would do that. But it's a system thing. A lot of impunity, you know, going on. So the media really has a key role to play in terms of, you know, ensuring that even in advertising, let these adverts also include adverts, you know, advocating for zero tolerance.
I think that the focus of violence against women in its entirety, or violence against women and girls in its entirety, should be on the perpetrators. Stop focusing on the survivors, stop focusing on the victims, right? Give them time of day only when you want to provide support and when you want to provide shelters and when you want to extricate them from difficult situations. But 90% of your time, focus on the perpetrators. We're not focusing enough on them. And that's why it seems like we don't have enough prosecutions. That's why it seems like the sex offender register, you know, which was launched November 25th, 2019, still seems to be empty, but we have perpetrators all over the place. The reason why we don't have the numbers and the data that we should have is this question that you're asking about, you know, should we be focused on young people or, you know, younger survivors or older survivors? We should focus on the perpetrators. If you listen to the disparity in numbers, the police said over 700 cases were reported. But I know of a state where in 1 month they had over 200 cases, right? Civil society organizations are reporting different numbers. We don't have the data. This is where the focus should be. We should find out where are these perpetrators. We should be able to hold the police to account. If we say 700 and something cases have been reported, how many have you investigated? How many have gotten to court? And then we focus on the courts. How many have gone through? We focus on the Evidence Act, which now is, you know, a little pile of rubbish, right? These are the things that we should focus on. And then when you think about the survivors, we should focus on them. How do we support these people? How do we safely reintegrate them back into society? That's where the focus should be. But if you're not thinking about those two, and in those two the government is failing currently, we should focus perpetually on the perpetrators.